Good morning, and in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. I'm Andy the Palm Springs linguist, and I'm on a road trip all the way from Palm Springs to Florida. Today, I'm going to explore Seaside Florida, the filming location of the Truman Show, where I'm going to bring into focus the subjunctive mood. Have you ever attempted to learn a language such as German, French, or Spanish, only to be confronted with a perplexing lesson about verbs in the subjunctive? Well, Seaside Florida, the filming location of The Truman Show, inspired by a 1989 Twilight Zone episode, is the perfect backdrop to bring this mood of unreality into focus. The Truman Show, starring Jim Carrey, is the story of Truman Burbank, a man who is part of a reality show in which he is the star. However, he has been kept completely in the dark his entire life about the reality show and is denied the knowledge that his every move is being filmed and that everything and everyone in his world is completely fake. Verbs can be categorized into two moods, irrealis and realis. At the end of the Truman Show, the main character asks,
"Was nothing real?"
Well, when we speak using an irrealis mood, including the subjunctive mood, in fact, nothing is real. Irrealis moods are moods of verbs that are used for actions that are not part of reality, at least not at the time. Verbs often encode information about three distinct but often intertwined concepts: tense, aspect, and mood. Tense communicates when something happens. Did the action happen in the past, present, or future? Look to the tense for the answer. Aspect communicates how something happens in relation to the flow of time. Is the action a habit, an action in the process of happening, or an action that is completed? Look to the aspect for the answer. Mood communicates what attitude the speaker has about the action. Does the speaker view the action as a fact, a wish, a possibility, or a command? Look to the mood for the answer. Languages can use a combination of tense, aspect, and mood, all in the same verb phrase, sometimes all in a single word, often making it difficult to identify them as separate concepts. In the Spanish translation of Truman didn't know the truth about his life, Truman no sabía la verdad sobre su vida. The verb sabía encodes tense, aspect, and mood all in one word. It marks the present tense, the imperfect aspect, and the indicative mood. Grammatical moods can be categorized into realis and irrealis moods. A realis mood is a mood of reality, such as the indicative mood that is a mood for actions that are actually the case or actually not the case. Here is an example of the indicative mood. In the movie, Truman was the first child to be legally adopted by a corporation. Since in the movie this is actually the case, the sentence is in the indicative mood, which is a realis mood. An irrealis mood is a mood for actions that are not part of reality, at least not at the time. Here are some examples of moods that are irrealis moods. The conditional mood. Truman would not have a fear of water if his father hadn't died in a sea storm. The imperative mood. Get the actor off the set before Truman thinks his father is alive. And the subjunctive mood. Christoph demanded that the actors on set be careful not to disclose the truth to Truman. The subjunctive mood is used for verbs that do not express current reality, such as a desire, an obligation, an imaginary event, or something that has not happened, at least not yet. What is the difference between these two sentences? Truman insists that Sylvia be here. Truman insists that Sylvia is here. In Truman insists that Sylvia be here, Sylvia is not here. Truman knows that Sylvia is not here, at least not yet. Someone needs to go get her. Since Sylvia being here is not reality, the verb be is in the subjunctive mood. But in Truman insists that Sylvia is here, Truman believes that Sylvia is already here somewhere. Someone just needs to look for her. Since Sylvia being here is reality, the verb is in the indicative mood. Romance languages such as Romanian, Portuguese, Italian, French, and Spanish, among others, all use the subjunctive mood more extensively than English. The situations under which you use the subjunctive varies by language.
Who? It's hard to tell. They look just like regular people.
How about those two?
Here are some examples of the subjunctive mood in Spanish. Cuando vaya a Seaside, visitaré Modica Market para buscar al cajero de la película. When I go to Seaside, I will visit Modica Market to look for the cashier from the movie. Spanish uses the subjunctive because my going there is not reality, at least not yet. English does not make this distinction. Notice that if you change the subjunctive verb vaya to its indicative equivalent voy, even though both words translate into English as go, the sentence changes meaning. Cuando voy a Seaside, visito Modica Market para buscar al cajero de la película. When I go to Seaside, I visit Modica Market to look for the cashier from the movie. Spanish uses the indicative mood just like English because my going there is already reality, and the use of the indicative means when I go there in general. Here is another use of the subjunctive in Spanish, but not in English. In the sentence, no hay nada que Truman pueda hacer sin saber la verdad. The negative word nada, which means nothing, triggers the subjunctive in the dependent clause because Truman being able to do something is not reality. However, if you change the negative word nada, nothing, to algo, something, then Truman being able to do something is indeed the case, and the indicative mood is used. Hay algo que Truman puede hacer si descubre la verdad. There is something that Truman can do if he learns the truth. Despite Spanish's use of the subjunctive, English does not use the subjunctive in either of these contexts. When monolingual English speakers attempt to learn a language with a more prominent subjunctive mood, determining when to use the subjunctive can be a real struggle, despite the fact that English actually does have the subjunctive. When I was just beginning to learn Spanish, I was given instruction on the subjunctive from a native Spanish-speaking college professor who told me to use the subjunctive in a particular sentence because otherwise it sounds wrong. I remember thinking, well, it sounds just fine to me. My challenge was that I wasn't yet explicitly taught the logic behind the subjunctive, and my prior knowledge of using the subjunctive in English was not activated, making me feel unnecessarily like I was encountering the subjunctive for my very first time. Here are some contexts in which English does use the subjunctive mood. Stating a counterfactual condition. A counterfactual is when you say something that goes against reality. It is not factual. For example, the verb had is in the subjunctive mood in the sentence, if you had the Truman Show delusion, you would be thinking that people are secretly filming your every move. Because even though some people actually have suffered from the Truman Show delusion, you do not. So saying, if you had the Truman Show delusion is counterfactual. This contrasts with the indicative mood. The verb have is in the indicative mood in the sentence, if you have the Truman Show delusion, then you should seek professional help, leaving room for the fact that you may in fact really have the Truman Show delusion. If so, please stop watching my video and go seek help. Another English use of the subjunctive is to express a wish, such as the verb fulfill in the sentence, may Truman fulfill his dream of traveling to Fiji. Or the verb be in another of my favorite movies, may the force be with you. Why does the subjunctive largely go unnoticed by monolingual English speakers? I mean, most native speakers of English have never even heard of this feature of their own language. First of all, in some contexts that would require the subjunctive, English has a grammatical pattern that enables you to avoid it. Here's a French sentence with the subjunctive, which can be translated into English in two different ways. One way is to translate it word for word, which does require the subjunctive in English. Sylvia wants that Truman know the truth. However, while this is grammatically correct, few English speakers would actually say it. They are far more likely to translate this French sentence as Sylvia wants Truman to know the truth, in which the use of the infinitive to know allows them to avoid the subjunctive entirely. Another reason the subjunctive largely goes unnoticed in English is that the forms used for the subjunctive can also be used for the imperative or indicative moods under different circumstances. In this movie requires that the viewer suspend disbelief. The verb suspend is in the subjunctive mood, and if you change the subject of the dependent clause to the plural noun viewers, the verb form stays the same. This movie requires that the viewers suspend disbelief. That is because they are both in the subjunctive. However, in the indicative, the verb changes based on whether the subject is plural or singular. The viewers suspend disbelief. The viewer suspends disbelief. Notice that the third person plural indicative form is exactly the same as the subjunctive form. Yet, the third person singular indicative form is different than the subjunctive. The viewer suspends disbelief. Since the form suspend is used as the subjunctive form and in certain environments can also be used as the indicative form, I'd venture to say most English speakers don't even notice the difference. So when English speakers study another language that has entirely distinct indicative and subjunctive forms, English speakers often treat the subjunctive in the new language as though they have never encountered the subjunctive before in their lives. So when Truman asked, "Was nothing real?" if the subjunctive mood was used, then no, Truman, it was not real. Christoph answers Truman by saying,
Was nothing real?
You were real.
if the indicative mood was used, then yes, Truman, it was real. Now I want to hear from you. What language have you studied that has a subjunctive mood? And what are your thoughts on the movie The Truman Show? Write your thoughts in the comments section below. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to click like and subscribe and click the notification bell to not miss any future episodes of the Palm Springs Linguist. I hope you enjoyed Seaside Florida as much as I did and that you gained a little bit of insight into the subjunctive mood. I'm Andy, the Palm Springs Linguist. Until our next adventure, in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Watch one of these great episodes.